Oh, hello. Perfect. I was waiting for it to come through. Hello, my friends. Welcome to this episode of Peaceful Path. Thank you so much for being here and yeah, for just being amazing. I can see you now. Thanks, TM. I appreciate it. How are you all today? How are you all? I really I missed you, and this is my first stream with you as a 40-year-old. For those who were planning on attending my meditation the other day, I got back from an escape to recharge. And I got back and I was inundated with work, with ENSO and stuff like that. And I just had sat there and I worked for 15 hours all throughout the night, and I just basically, yeah, I just needed that extra sleep. So it was tough, but we're here now, and I'm glad to be here with you. And thank you, all of you, for your birthday wishes and for being so amazing and thoughtful. I really appreciate it. Hello, Stephanie. Thanks, TM. I appreciate it. So yeah, rest is very important. We tend to underestimate how important it is to if the thing is, if I sleep any less than 6 hours, my brain just does not function, and it's not going to be a good day. So that was important for me. Nonetheless, we're here now. Thank you, Robin. Appreciate it. I'm trying to forget, but it's part of life. Embracing a new decade in my life. So yeah, thanks guys. Thanks Alpha Dog. It's nice to be back on YouTube, chatting to you guys, being with you guys. Hey Suzanne, lovely to see you. Great to see you. How are you today? Thank you. Well, great to see you all. I really appreciate it. Thanks Alpha Dog. It's great to be here, and this is a topic that is, this is such a good topic, especially considering, as a meditation instructor with ENSO, I've decided to branch out a little bit into aged care facilities and helping the elderly with meditation and reclaim a new sense of spirituality and purpose at a time in their lives when they need it the most. So this suggestion by Suzanne, which is such a kind and beautiful suggestion, could not have been more appropriate, could not have come at a better time for me personally as a professional. And Suzanne suggested a few more topics. Ruth has suggested some beautiful, great topics. And if you have any topics that you'd like me to discuss for Peaceful Path, by all means, shoot them through. I'm going to be presenting all of them in due time. So thank you for suggesting that, because that could not have come at a better time. It gave me a very good opportunity to research a little bit more about it. And as I was researching, I actually came across some studies, a few studies that I found to be very interesting, and discussed the effects of meditation on elderly communities. And the effect it can have on aging populations, and how loneliness is it's a problem, and it's something that is very prevalent among aging populations, elderly communities, and mostly, unfortunately, among people who are in residential aged care facilities, because and we'll discuss why, we'll discuss all of those kind of things, but that's the first thing that we'll talk about. So I'll set it up for you first, and I'll explain what are the challenges that the elderly community is faced with. Then I want to talk about this study that I was reading through, and it's a good study. It took a bit of reading, and but I was very impressed with how they conducted it and with the findings they came up with. And it was an Australian study by Charles Sturt University. So we'll discuss that in a second, okay? But Loneliness. Oh, hello, Fatima. Lovely to see you. Lovely to see you. Thank goodness you're on YouTube, and yeah, great timing. So, loneliness is something that that is very prevalent in aging populations for a variety of reasons. Okay, firstly, part of it could be or is because of the social isolation aspect of it. Oftentimes, when people Hey guys, can you see me now? I think we had a little internet connection. I think my internet cut off a little bit. I'll wait for you to respond. So, you see me now. Okay, great, yeah. Okay. Well, we'll jump back straight. We'll jump straight back in. Thanks, Linda. Appreciate it. Yeah, it must have been a little internet problem. So there's that. So social circles slowly start shrinking, and what that causes again is loneliness. But another consequence is also of loneliness in elderly populations is a limited community engagement. And I know that obviously we can't make that generalization because there are a lot of elderly populations, or elderly citizens, or aging people who are very involved in community activities and doing things and even working. So we can't generalize, but I'm talking about specifically the ones who are experiencing loneliness. But yeah, for those, having limited access to community engagement, or even, and what may be a result of that could be mobility issues. They may have health problems that can prevent them from participating in those activities. So that could be an issue, because those activities once kept them connected to their people, once kept them engaged, and not having access to those programs can lead to isolation. And lastly, reduced family interaction. So, some families, those especially who are experiencing loneliness, may find they interact with their families less and less, that they have limited access to their families for whatever reason. It could be geographical, it could be that their family members are experiencing busy lifestyles. And, as families drift apart and interact a lot less, it can be a very isolating experience, especially when again your social circle has shrunk. So there's that. There's also the extreme, and we're discussing the roots first, and we'll work up and discuss the meditation side. But it could also be technology. Sometimes technology is moving at an extremely fast pace, and it can feel isolating. It can feel like you're trying to catch on, and everyone else is living this one life, and you're a little bit behind. So that can be a problem. As we're talking about health issues, physical limitations, maybe not being able to drive and having access to transport. So there are, and obviously all of that leads to depression and anxiety. Depression and anxiety can also be a manifestation of just losing friends along the way, losing people in your life, and that can also, mental health issues can have a severe impact on loneliness, which is not good. So what do we do about it? I was researching a little bit, and I wanted to know how meditation can positively impact aging populations in a way that can help them feel less lonely and more involved in society and more optimistic about the future. And as I was saying to you in the first few minutes, I came across this study, And again, it was by Charles Sturt University, and it's basically a study. It was a qualitative study, so they focused on 13 individuals. And the reason they did that, as opposed to a quantitative study, in which they focused on a large pool of people, is because they wanted to elaborate specifically on each person and extract more details. So they wanted to magnify their findings and understand in a very specific sense how meditation in an elderly community that is isolated can affect the residents in this community. And the findings are actually quite interesting. So they actually did identify that 50% of people who live in residential aged care facilities suffer from depression or anxiety or both. And that is compared to 10% of elderly individuals who are living outside of residential aged care communities. So now when you compare the two populations, those who live in residential aged care communities and those who don't, obviously the problem is more prevalent in those who do. So it's important that we focus and try to understand why it is or how to help them. It really is sad, isn't it? So they took the study over there, and they realized that the problem that they have is they lack meaning. They lack meaning. They don't have many people around them. They're all in different phases of their elderly lives. They all possess different cognitive abilities. Some people may have had a deterioration of their cognitive abilities. Others may be okay, like there's nothing wrong with them. Others may have experienced a stroke. So it's very hard for them a lot of them are not really on the same. So they a lot of them just stick to themselves, and it can be very sad that they don't feel like they have this sense of community. So the goal of this study was to help them through meditation seek greater meaning and re-establish a greater sense of meaning and spirituality. And here they say that they emphasize that spirituality is about seeking meaning for purpose and transcendence through the relationship with their self, others, society, and through nature, and the significant or the sacred, right? So the idea behind this meditation is that they wanted to help them achieve a greater sense of meaning and spirituality, so they can understand themselves a little bit better and they gain more hope about the future. So they decided to focus on a variety of meditations. One was a mantra meditation, okay? And they suggested that because it was a very Christian community, they suggested they use an Aramaic mantra, right? An Aramaic mantra. It was Maranatha, which in Aramaic means "Come, Lord." Now, some of them did not feel comfortable using this mantra, so they used other mantra. They offered them whichever mantra they felt most comfortable with. It could have been anything. It could have been breathe in, breathe out. It could have been thank you. It could have been an affirmation. So it could have been any mantra, but they suggested by default this Aramaic mantra, which means "Come, Lord." It could have even been "Come, Lord." So that was part of it, and then the second part of they decided to conduct a 6-week meditation program with all 13 individuals. The individuals ranged in age from 78 to 95. The average age was about 86, roughly. So that was the first part. They included a 10-minute mantra meditation. They included a gratitude meditation, which they focused on on things that they're grateful for, but they did it in a group context. They also include the practice of Dadiri. I don't know if you've heard of Dadiri, but it's an Aboriginal Indigenous meditation that the Aboriginal community here practice. And I never actually studied it or delved into it, but it is interesting. They decided, because we're in Australia, to include that in the context of the program. And the Diri, basically, the basic premise of the Diri meditation that has been, by the way, practiced for tens of thousands of years by the Aboriginal and Indigenous and Torres Strait Islanders of our land, is that the basic premise is active listening. So basically, listening not only to how your body feels, listening to your surroundings, and taking in everything, and just accepting. It's listening and accepting it. So it's a very it's a very valuable meditation in trying to accept your current circumstances and take in what it is, what's coming from the world without resisting it. So there's that. Let's see. Okay. So they did that, the Diri, and then they also, another part of the session would have been discussing so bouncing off each other, talking about how they all felt, and listening to other people's, other group members' perspectives. So that was another one. And yeah. And also another one would have been a prayer. So they would have done a prayer together, which, by the way, ties in with gratitude a lot. And interesting, while they were practicing the gratitude, they would give themselves like a hand massage, which is quite interesting why they included that. But that was, and then they asked them at the end of the 6 weeks. We'll get to the conclusions in a sec, well, later. But they asked them, what parts of your meditation did you find the most valuable? What of the session did you find the most valuable at the end of the 6 weeks? And interesting, they said that the bit that they found the most valuable out of it was the meaningfully connecting and sharing with other members. They found that more valuable than the actual meditation itself. So they enjoyed, and I want to read a few testimonials and a few quotes from some of the members of that study. But they enjoyed listening to other members. They enjoyed the social aspect of it a lot more than the actual meditation, which is quite interesting. This is a quote from Dot, who's 95 years old. She was the oldest, and this is a very recent study. It's from 2019, so it's very recent. She's the oldest member of the group. She said, being in a facility with a program is interesting in itself, in that we have an activity officer, but I need the spiritual stimulation. I love to participate with others, and it is an encouragement for me personally to express myself. I believe I am a spiritual being apart from being a spiritual being. So I need to keep that in mind and cherish it and stimulate it with others. In my old age, I have a lot of spare time, and with that spare time, I try to think more deeply about nurturing my spirit. I love sharing, right? And basically, there's a whole bunch of quotes. Here there is Nan, who's 94 years old, and she shares, I think it is good to tell other people how you are feeling and hear about how they are feeling. And I like learning about other people and what they think. And I recently read a study actually that verified that gratitude when practiced, the most potent and powerful way to practice gratitude, to reap the benefits of gratitude, is by actually understanding how things that you've done for other people has affected them, as opposed to thinking of what you're grateful for. Think about what others may be grateful for and how others may be grateful for you. So it's very interesting because that seems to work very well. So interestingly, one of the most effective ways to implement gratitude into our lives is by understanding how others may be grateful. And that ties into us being social beings and really wanting to connect with other people, which is quite fascinating. Fatima saying in Portugal, we've got the senior universities which help the elderly stay active. Yeah, amazing, Fatima. And that's important. And a lot of the programs involve mobility and moving up and down. Interestingly, in this study, they actually, the way they set the room up was in a circle so everyone can face everyone. In the middle, they had a table and they had a candle. They wanted to create a very spiritual, welcoming, warm, sort of vibe, sort of, yeah. So that is it. And they also, the second thing that they really, so they prioritize 4 things about the program they really enjoyed. They enjoyed the theme of providing a supportive and reflective space. And by that I mean they appreciate having a space in which they can reflect on their experiences. Okay, not just share with other members, not just connect, but also reflect. Have that time after that meditation to reflect on their experience, to share their experience with their teacher. So that was very, very, very interesting. And Dot, again, our 95-year-old resident Dot said, it encourages me to express my own thoughts. Just being in the room here is something I enjoy. But in the group here is something I enjoy too. The quiet time, the quiet space. I came earlier into this room and I thought I just do my own thing and have a quiet time with God and just be aware of God's gifts to me. So that's interesting. And there's an array of different quotes and testimonials that we have received from residents. One of them was from Vivienne. She said, "We need time to build up the trust. If you understand what I'm trying to say, I think it is very important. It takes time to build the trust for people to feel okay, to say what is in their heart, and so forth." So it creates this whole element of trust, and that ties into gratitude as well. So the next theme that they found extremely effective throughout this whole exercise was practicing the mindfulness meditation, because a lot of them spend a lot of time in their own rooms reflecting and not really wanting to leave their rooms. And that could also be symptomatic of depression or of, again, obviously loneliness, but of anxiety or whatever it is. They're trying to avoid things that make them feel uncomfortable and sad. So a lot of them found the mindfulness meditation aspect to be extremely helpful in helping them cope with those feelings of loneliness. And what that did is, according to the studies, it helped them feel a greater sense of spirituality. And I'll just read a quote that I highlighted from the study. Participants equated mindfulness with spiritual growth and prayer, relaxation, helping them to sleep and still their mind, and helping them with problem solving. So all of those things, when you amplify, when mindfulness helps amplify those aspects of your life, you feel less isolated. You feel like you are more able to and more willing to communicate with members of your community. You feel more, confident. You feel more open. So mindfulness in that sense helped them a lot. It gave them a moment of quietness. It gave them a chance to confront their thoughts and understand their thoughts. And it gave them the autonomy to learn how to deal with their thoughts. So a lot of them found that mindfulness meditation brought this greater sense of confidence and spirituality. And how does it bring, even though the meditation they practiced may have been a mantra meditation, but it doesn't really matter whether it's a mantra meditation or a Buddhist mindfulness meditation. They both carry the same effect, right? Ultimately, you're focusing on one thing without judgment, right? For a certain period of time. In mantra meditation, it is a mantra. In mindfulness meditation, it is the breath. So ultimately, it has the same effect. So that's not the issue. What really brought them closer to spirituality was the fact that they felt more connected with themselves. They felt happier. And it's a lot easier to achieve and accomplish a greater sense of spirituality when you're in a happy place, when you feel confident, when you feel good. And they felt more present, and they felt like they have better access to their own consciousness and to their own needs. And when that happens, you allow yourself, you enable yourself to explore more within you, okay? And that opens you up to more spirituality. I'll read a quote by one of the residents. Her name is Nan, and she says, I just like the quiet period of meditation. It just feels like it is the right way to relax and get yourself together. I think it has a lot to do with the way you're thinking and with the way you approach everything. I think a lot about things and try to keep unhappy thoughts out of my mind. So meditation equips them with the tools to know how to deal with those unhappy thoughts, not let them take over. And that, again, puts them in a better space, which empowers them to interact better with members of their community, which is awesome, which is great. One of them said that she doesn't really meditate on her own. She doesn't feel like she can. So the group was a great incentive for her to not only interact with other members of the community, but to also meditate. It gives her an incentive to meditate. And lastly, the fourth thing that they found that they truly valued the most in this study and from the 6-week program that was given to them was practicing gratitude and expressing gratitude as well. So that was the fourth theme that they found to be extremely useful out of the 6-week study. And that was interesting. That was interesting because what they did was that they basically told the group what they're grateful for, but then they went around in a circle various times. They listened to what other members of the group are grateful for. And interestingly, it ties into what I was saying to you before, they found that the practice of listening to what other members of the group are grateful for, they found that to be even more helpful than even expressing what they are grateful for. So that was very, very interesting. And I'm going to read a quote, a testimonial. Actually, I'll read 2 testimonials from members of that group, then I'll answer your question, Suzanne. So one of them, Ella, right, says, I like the gratitude activity because some people's gratitude was the simple things, the little things that are important. And that spoke to me. Again, she's mentioning what some people's were. So it was more about the social aspect, more about listening to others. Gracia, who's 78, now she couldn't really talk to people. She had a stroke, so she couldn't communicate verbally. So whenever she had to express something to the researchers and to the teachers, she would write it down on a piece of paper. And she wrote, thinking of what I'm grateful for is a shortcoming of mine, right? And for a lot of people it is. So for a lot of us, it's hard to think of what we are grateful for. She said, I feel ingratitude has been a spiritual shortcoming of mine that I would like to change. And that's very true. In many ways, when we don't experience gratitude, when we don't express what it is that we're grateful for, not necessarily about the world, but about ourselves, it can be a spiritual shortcoming. It can hold us back from opening up spiritually, from expressing ourselves to our fullest. Lastly, I'll read one more from Vera. She said, hearing others sharing grateful thoughts is infectious. Remember, hearing others share their grateful thoughts. It's all about social. So the whole experience made them feel like they're more connected to their community. And the fact and what really had the most impact was hearing others share their thoughts. She said it was infectious. She said practicing gratitude is good. I definitely don't disagree with her there. Yes, I'm very lucky to be in this place, and so I am very grateful. I love this place. I have also been a positive person. Okay, so why that could be good for her and for the residents specifically, because it helps them rewire their perception of how being in this place may make them feel, right? It can change your paradigm. You know, a lot of them may be there, may be thinking, oh my God, I hate being here. I don't like the people that are my neighbors. I don't have anyone to talk to. But when you start rewiring your brain and shifting the paradigm and focusing on paving a different path, you start approaching your life very differently. You start firstly being more present and being more happy with whatever present circumstances you are in. But you also, it also affects you socially, right? You become a little happier. You become a little bit more content. And your actions may be reflected in different ways. So that was very interesting. Now, let's go through Suzanne's question. Suzanne's asking, if someone has dementia, would meditation be beneficial as well? That's a great question, Suzanne. So The short answer is yes. The long answer is I actually found a study, okay? A study that was published in 2014, and it was, I'm trying to find the university, published in Frontiers of Behavioral Neuroscience, right? 2014. And the study basically looked into the effects of meditation on cognitive function in the context of neurodegenerative diseases such as dementia. And it basically looked into the brains of people who have been meditating for quite some time. And they actually found, they explored a variety of meditations: mindfulness meditation, transcendental, which is basic mantra, and Kirtan Kriya, which is a meditation, which is basically a meditation that involves singing, such as what the Hare Krishnas engage in. And they actually concluded that meditation does act as a protective, does have a protective effect on the brain by enhancing the cognitive reserves and reducing some of the cognitive decline associated with ailments such as dementia or anything of the like. So the authors of the study suggested that the benefits may be due to the impact of meditation on enhancing overall brain health. So mechanisms such as cortical thickness in the brain, enhancing connectivity between different brain regions, so the two hemispheres of the brain. And another thing they found about meditation for people who are suffering from dementia is that it helps reduce inflammation. So in that way, it helps alleviate the symptoms of dementia. Now, I'm not saying it is a cure for dementia, but it definitely has shown to reverse some of the symptoms that dementia does include, which to me I found to be very, very inspiring, because I think dementia can be it can be a scary thing to confront when you achieve a certain age, especially when you don't really have the community around you, or a community around you to support you. It can be very isolating. Let's see. I'm just going to read a quote from the study. The researchers proposed that meditation could serve as a non-invasive and cost-effective approach to support cognitive health in the elderly, making it a potentially valuable tool for individuals at risk of dementia and other neurodegenerative diseases. They encouraged further studies to fully understand the specific mechanisms by which meditation affects the aging brain, and to explore its long-term benefits for elderly populations. So basically, in other words, meditation did, through this particular study, help improve the quality of lives of members of the elderly population who were experiencing cognitive declines due to dementia or due to anything else, any other neurodegenerative conditions. So, yeah. So, and I found that what I found very interesting is the inflammatory markers, how they noted that meditation can help reduce inflammations. I found that to be quite interesting. That was good to know. Let's see what Ruth is saying. So many just need people to interact with and listen. 100%, Ruth. Look, at the end of the day, as human beings, we're social. Being in social settings, okay, is really what fuels us as human beings. Again, I don't know if many of you know that, but in prisons, right, people, the worst of the worst people who are in prison would rather be sharing a cell with psychopaths and killers and the worst people of the world than be in solitary confinement. So solitary confinement is the worst punishment in a prison. And that is, in my opinion, reflected of how we would rather share a room with psychopaths and murderers than be alone. My point is, humans, we love being around people. We gravitate to social settings. We feed off members of our community. We're communal creatures, and we wouldn't have accomplished what we have throughout tens of thousands of years if not for our communities. So community to us humans is extremely, extremely important. And we need to understand that, and we need to nourish that and cherish that and work on that and build on that. It's very important. We can't neglect our innate sense and desire to be in a community. Suzanne saying, fascinating. Do you have the same experience and approach when you do meditations with seniors? I certainly do. And I find that a lot of this, I've only done 2 aged care facilities so far. Luckily, they're just not far from me, so it's close. And I've done a few sessions so far with them. And what I found is, and I can compare them to the corporate sector and to high school kids. What I found is that they are, with corporates, they genuinely want to just work on themselves. They genuinely want to focus on improving. But within the elderly, there's less of a sense of competitiveness, and they're just happy to be doing an activity with me. They're happy to be doing something. They really enjoy this sense of being together and sharing an experience together. And honestly, I love that. I really enjoy that. And I actually enjoy running meditations for elderly care facilities more than anything, because I just love this. I love that they value the social side of it. They really take part in the activities. They're not shy about stepping forth and volunteering and sharing their thoughts. And there's really this sense of camaraderie in the group. They're all listening to each other, supporting each other. When someone in the group shares a recent experience they may have had, someone in their lives may have passed away, or they may just have been going through a very lonely week. The others are very supportive. The others are, just like, oh, wow, we're here for you. Thank you for sharing that. There's this beautiful sense of support. And I love that. And what I've gathered, personally speaking as an anecdote, is that they value the social aspect more than the actual meditation. They look forward to having me there in the room with them, facilitating a session in which we talk about gratitude. I explain to them the theories of meditation 101 and all that sort of stuff. They enjoy that more than the 15-minute meditation that we do each time. So yeah, 100%. I found that in that sense as well, it really does give them an excuse to connect further with their communities, for sure. Fatima's saying, related to this question, can meditation prevent dementia, at least delay the process? Very, very interesting, Fatima. Personally, I think yes. I haven't come across any studies that have concrete evidence to suggest that meditation does unequivocally prevent dementia, but based on fundamental studies about meditation by Harvard University that have shown that meditation does increase the hippocampus in our brains. Regular meditation of 20 minutes a day for 8 weeks straight. The hippocampus in our brain is in charge of memory and learning. So if you keep massaging the hippocampus and helping it grow and helping it feel more or create more neural pathways and more neuroplasticity in the hippocampus in your brain. Meditation also helps increase and strengthen the prefrontal cortex in our brain. The prefrontal cortex is in charge of logic, is in charge of learning, is in charge of piecing things together and communicating it in many ways. So going by how it may change our brain, I can only comfortably assume that it may have some effect on the onset of dementia. I just don't know for sure whether it may completely prevent dementia. But what I have noticed, an observation, it's just an observation, is that dementia is not very prevalent in communities that are heavily Buddhist, that meditate regularly. So that could be an indication of how meditation may help you prevent dementia, Alzheimer's, or any neurodegenerative disease. So that's something for you to think about. You won't find any monks, from what I've actually sought out to find out whether any monks or Buddhists who do suffer from dementia. I couldn't find any. So that could be an indication. I'm not going to put that out there and as a conclusive means of how meditation may prevent dementia, but I'm just putting it out there so you, in a general sense, you may think about it yourself. Based on that, I would say yes. Personally, instinctively, I would say that meditation does have a very positive affect and play a very important role in preventing dementia. So yeah. Alpha Dog is saying everyone needs validation. 100%. Everyone needs validation. Everyone needs to feel like they have a community with them to validate them and also support them, especially as we near older ages, for sure. Judy's saying, I find being with people makes all the difference. To my 1,000%, Judy. 1,000%. Being with people, being in the presence of other community members, in my opinion, is one of not only the biggest antidotes to depression, anxiety, and loneliness, but it can also play a huge role in spiritual fulfillment and in longevity, in living longer. And I just, Ikigai covers that as well. One of the secrets of living a long life. And they studied Okinawa, which holds the largest number of centurions in the world per capita. Centurion is someone who lives over 100. And they've discovered that one of the most prevalent commonalities they all share is that they all keep working together as a community. They're all helping each other out. They're constantly interacting with each other. There's no loneliness, as opposed to the residential aged care facility where people would spend days, sometimes whole days on their own in the room with the carer coming in and seeing how they are every now and then. You contrast that with members of Okinawa's community constantly engaging with each other, constantly seeing how they are. And they don't just do that in Okinawa, they do that in Sardinia and in other blue zones that have people who live way past 100. So sharing your experiences with members of your community and knowing that you have a community there with you to support you and for them to know that you are there for them. And one of the things I found fascinating about Okinawa is that, was it Okinawa or was it, yeah, I think it was Okinawa, is that they have a sort of tax. It's like a very small tax and they put it into this bank. And when someone goes through something, needs surgery or has something that requires, they take that money out of that little fund and they use it to support that member of their community. So I found that to be very interesting. So it just shows how community ties very well into longevity as well. Linda is saying, would that include all inflammation, as in all autoimmune diseases? I'm not quite sure, Linda. That's a good question. I can't tell you definitively whether it does, but I can tell you that in the case of that study, they were alluding to inflammation in the brain. But you know what? I actually personally think that one of the greatest cause to autoimmune inflammations is stress, right? Stress can be a huge cause to people's people suffering from autoimmune condition, from inflammation that may be a result of, or autoimmune conditions may be a result of inflammation. And meditation, by definition, helps alleviate stress. So that basically, if you go by that logic, then yeah, I guess. Ruth is saying, it's all beneficial for them. I'm sure they welcome your visits. Do you think they'd like meeting their younger selves, as many enjoy reminiscing and their early memories are often stronger? It's a good question. I think they would. I think they would. And it's something that I'd like to introduce to them down the track. With the younger self meditation, that is something that I have only introduced twice in person. And in one of the times, half the members of the group cried. And that was fascinating for me to witness. So it's a very powerful meditation, the going back and communicating with your younger self and receiving validation and from your younger self can be a very powerful experience. I haven't admittedly yet incorporated that into my residential aged care meditations, but it's something I'm looking at doing down the track. And when I do, I'll definitely let you know how that affects, what effects that may have on how they feel, for sure. But thanks for bringing that up, Ruth. It's very interesting. Let's see. And Linda's saying blue zones also have a more plant-based diet. 100%, and that is that something, a commonality that all blue zones have. Okinawa, Sardinia, there's one in America, in California, is Seventh-day Adventist community, I forgot the name of it, but they also are a blue zone. There's one in Greece, And one of the things they all have in common is that, yes, they may eat a bit of fish and meat here and there, but 90% of their diet comprises of plants. So that I found that to be very interesting. A plant-based diet is a very, very big part of living a long life, among obviously having a community with you as well, without a doubt. And we can delve into that a little bit later in another episode about how a plant-based diet can help you live longer. Because that's something I truly believe in, being someone who follows a plant-based diet. But I believe that we have run out of time now, and that should be a talk for another time. So I really appreciate you guys being here and sharing your thoughts with me. And I appreciate you, and I appreciate the value that you bring to this chat. I hope that you enjoyed this talk. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Peaceful Path as much as I enjoyed delivering it. And thank you, Suzanne, for suggesting this topic, because it was just such an interesting topic to research. I thoroughly enjoyed it, just reading through the studies and papers. And look, there are still dozens of more studies that I'm yet to read. But those few studies that I did read taught me a lot about the effects and about the impacts. Let's see. Suzanne saying, I feel meditating is beneficial and has a positive effect on everyone. But are there also negatives? It's a great question. Look, I personally don't think there are negatives to meditation and the reason I say that is because how could there be negatives to meditation? If say you find the meditation that you don't enjoy, or that may even make you feel a little uncomfortable, the good thing is there are thousands of other meditations you can incorporate, right? Prayer is a meditation. There's no negative to prayer. Tai Chi is a form of meditation. Yoga is a form of meditation. So yes, there may be meditations that may not resonate with you, that may make you feel a little uncomfortable or even frustrated. And I suppose you could argue that that could produce a negative effect. But overall, part of finding yourself within this journey of meditation is also finding a meditation that best suits you. And once you have done that, I don't see how there could be any negative effects to meditation. Really, one of the things I love about meditation is that it's one of the few things in our lives that it's an antidote that we include into our lives that unlike a lot of things that we do, we may take pills, we may commit to certain diets, but unlike any of those, meditation is one of the few things that we can introduce into our lives. It doesn't really have any negative side effects, provided we do it in moderation, right? In moderation. So we meditate for an allocated, healthy amount of time every day. And we don't force our beliefs onto other people. That can be negative, right? That can have a very negative effect. That can happen to a lot of people who first discover meditation. It's a trap. Is that when they first discover meditation, they are overwhelmed in many ways by the positive effects that they have received from meditation. And then the first thing they want to do is preach meditation to everyone. And the same goes into religion as well. I know someone who just recently become a born-again Christian. And whenever I speak to them, she constantly tries to preach to me. And nothing against anyone who follows religion. But I think that if you're overdoing something, it can just make the other person feel a little uncomfortable being around them. And that happens with meditation as well. Some people adopt meditation for the first time, and out of excitement, they're just constantly preaching. Someone will say to you, I'm feeling a little sad today. Try meditation. I'm going to try meditation. You're just basically prescribing meditation to everyone, and that can also have an obnoxious effect. So, moderation, just be mindful that we all have our different journeys in life, and that if people haven't discovered meditation the way that you have, then give them time to introduce it to their lives. Again, we all have different proclivities and journeys and ways of accepting things. So let's see. You're welcome, Stephanie. Thank you, Stephanie. You're welcome, Fatima. It's my absolute pleasure. Researching these things, it's a fascinating and fun way for me to grow as well. So I appreciate you suggesting the topics. Judy's saying, great subject. We all need to know the positives as we age. 100% Judy. 100. And there are so many positives to aging. And we just need to meditate on it. We just need to work on ourselves. We need to grow individually and therefore extract the positives and use those positives to fly, to shine, without a doubt. Thank you, Suzanne. My absolute pleasure. I'm so glad you found it interesting. You're welcome, Kathy. Absolutely welcome. Linda's saying really interesting thing. You're welcome, Linda. I'm glad you found it interesting. Fatima saying, are there meditations that are better than others for the elderly? Great question, Fatima. I think meditation, regardless of whether you're an elderly or not, I think meditation is a very individual thing. I think that mantras will resonate differently with some as mindfulness meditation. So I think that the best meditations that would work for the elderly would either be a mindfulness meditation or a mantra-based meditation, right? And both of those meditations help you feel elevated spiritually. So I'd say those two meditations would, but also gratitude meditations. So I'd say gratitude tied in with mantra and mindfulness meditations would be what I would prescribe to a resident of an elderly aged care community. You're absolutely welcome, Mary Lou. Thanks for being here. You're welcome, Alpha Dog. And thanks to all of you for being here, for sharing your time with me. I will have tomorrow, I know I'm mindful that for Europe it's an inconvenient time, so I'm sorry. I won't take offense if you can't come. It's perfectly understandable, but I just had to do it at that time. So I'll do a little Q&A on Inside Timer. If you want to jump in, if you're from North America or Australia, feel free to jump in. And I will add the next Peaceful Path soon. Thanks again, Suzanne and Ruth, for your suggestions. I'll add them as soon as possible. And appreciate you guys. Love you guys. You're welcome, Robin. Big thank you to you for being here, for sharing your energy, your love, your interest in this topic. And I'll see you soon. Lots of love. Big hug to you. Thank you, TM. I appreciate it. Thank you. And have an amazing day to you as well. Happy birthday to your son. And see you next time, Fatima. Absolutely. I'll see you guys next time. And look after yourselves. Have an amazing weekend. And for those, if I don't speak to some of you before then have an amazing week. Love you. Thank you, Kathy.